What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to The Order. The Hunter is the most powerful and adaptable character in all of Midnight Suns, which makes sense given that they are the player character and central protagonist of the story. With over 30 abilities and 3 different skill branches to choose from, it can be hard to peg down an exact build that best maximizes the character and fits your desired playstyle. In this video, I want to share with you the Hunter build I've been rolling with in my current New Game Plus run, with considerations for what mods you can use to maximize the build. As we go through this, let me know in the comments below how you've opted to construct your version of the Hunter. I'm always fascinated to hear what ideas everyone in the community has come up with. Now, before we begin, one of the most overlooked parts of the Midnight Suns UI is the hero profile screen. In it, you get an amazing overview of each character's combat performance, analytical data of all your card usage with that character, and even a handy guide written by the devs with recommendations for how to play that character. For the Hunter, single target damage is listed as their primary defining trait, and that, in essence, is how I've decided to construct my version of the character. With that being said, let's start with the Hunter's passive ability. While an argument can be made for many of the game's passives, Fully Charged, which can be earned fairly early on in the game, is really hard to top. Its consistent usefulness is undeniable, adding a stack of resist or a point of heroism on every single turn. Resist after Conceal is the best form of damage mitigation in the game, and being able to add a stack of this on every turn is invaluable, as is a free point of heroism. As far as the collar is concerned, because the majority of the skills in this build fall into the power branch of the Hunter's abilities, I'm using the balanced collar, which, again, I believe to be the most reliable collar in the game. It draws 2 Hunter cards after playing 3 power cards, and considering how busted the Hunter is and how good their abilities are, getting 2 of their cards back in your hand feels more useful to me than the effects of some of the other collars. Now, in terms of the makeup of this deck, I'm using 5 power cards, 2 dark cards, and 1 light card, broken down into 4 attacks, 2 skills, and 2 heroics. The main thrust of this build is damage, damage, and more damage, with a heavy emphasis on devastating single target attacks, all while funneling those attacks right back into your hand through the use of mods and upgrades that draw cards. Let's start with the core of this build, the 2 Quick Slash cards. Doing 50% of the Hunter's offense with knockback and quick make these excellent for minion KOs and targeting an elite enemy with a minion behind them. While an argument can be made for using another ability in this slot that might have forceful knockback or do more damage and that can be modded with quick, the difference with Quick Slash is that you get the knockback, the base damage, and the quick all before you mod it, allowing you to use the mod to bring more utility to the table. In this instance, adding a mod that draws a Hunter card on KO brings another one of those excellent Hunter cards right into your hand. Again, the concept here is you want the Hunter to be able to pop off as much as possible. With the other Quick Slash, you can double down on drawing Hunter cards, or another possibility is to use the Quick Slash mod to add another stack of resist or even conceal, which can combine with the resist you get from your passive to make the Hunter untouchable on most turns. Now, the other 2 attack cards in this build are going to come from the Dark branch. Wild Strike is a vicious attack that does 250% of the Hunter's offense in a single punishing blow. That is a ton of damage coming from merely an attack card. Of course, being that this is a dark ability, it does come with a caveat. The Hunter gains a stack of vulnerable when using the card. Now, bear in mind there are a few ways to negate this effect. One is simply the resilience mechanic, which can be earned through leveling and progression. Resilience gives the character a chance to outright negate a negative status effect upon application. Another way to negate this is to simply use a cure ability or move on cure to immediately cleanse the Hunter. Or if the Hunter isn't being targeted, the vulnerable won't matter. Not to mention you can negate this further with all of those resists you've potentially stacked earlier. Now, the real kicker with Wild Strike is the fact that it can roll with the Quick mod, allowing it to function as an excellent finisher on elite enemies. This gives you 4 total attack cards, all with the ability to refund card plays on KO, helping to ensure better turn efficiency. Now, for the skill cards in this build, there are a ton of good options at play here with the Hunter, but for the sake of maximizing our damage output, which is the whole point of the character here, Wrath is a card that single-handedly elevates this entire deck. This card, which comes free on upgrade, gives every single Hunter card crit for 2 turns, buffing all of the Hunter's damage. This is pretty self-explanatory. Pop this with a Hunter card or 2 in your hand, and you're gonna melt the enemy field one by one. Those wild strikes and quick slashes and the heroics doing bonus damage for 2 turns? Gross. You can mod this in a number of ways, but drawing the last attack card played works wonders if preceded with one of your Hunter attacks, as that card will now come back into your hand with crit. And again, this card is both free and a power card, which once again helps you build up your balanced collar, which once again will draw more Hunter cards back into your hand. You see the strategy here, right? The other skill card in this build is the one light card in the deck, and probably the most replaceable card in the build, but it's one I've stuck with for much of my Midnight Suns run and remains perfectly viable. Inspire will reduce the cost of a random heroic in your hand to 0 until it's played. This is probably the most team-friendly card in the deck, as it can benefit any heroic card in your hand, but in particular it becomes useful when isolating an expensive heroic like Patience or one of those heroic combos. Again, the plus here is that this effect does not reset on turn. The card will be a 0-cost heroic until it's played. More importantly, Inspire comes free before modding, meaning you can add some serious utility with the mod slot, like, once again, drawing the last attack card played. Finally, let's talk about our 2 heroic abilities in this build. One thing we haven't touched on is AoE damage. Bladestorm is essentially the Nick Jr. version of the Hulk's Worldbreaker skill, doing 100% of the Hunter's offense with forceful knockback on an area. You could theoretically replace this with another AoE skill like the Dark Legendary card Annihilation to fill that AoE gap in the build, but Bladestorm gives you an additional power card to help trigger Balanced Collar, not to mention on upgrade the ability to draw cards for every single KO with the skill. Considering you can also use the Forceful Knockback to send an enemy into a teammate to draw another card, and you have the potential to draw damn near half your deck into your hand, giving you quite literally every option imaginable. As a side note, modding this is an absolute pain in the butt crack, since legendary cards require a legendary blueprint to re-roll a mod each and every time. Highly recommend modding this with increased area effect if the RNG gods so will it. And rounding out the deck is Patience, every Fallen's worst enemy. Patience is the most devastating single target attack card in the game and a perfect capper to this build, doing 5 times the Hunter's offense. Let me repeat that. 5 times the Hunter's offense. Patience is best used on the highest health enemy possible, particularly useful on supervillains and heavily shielded protectors. This is also why I love playing the Hunter with characters who can apply Vulnerable, because you combine the sheer base damage output of these cards with the ability to give them crit with Wrath, and there's literally nothing you can't melt. Again, with Patience, this is a power card, so yet again, Balanced Collar. You can mod this in a number of ways, including doing additional damage to damaged or undamaged targets, or you can continue to emphasize multiple card draws. Any way you slice it, the Hunter is capable of doing insane amounts of damage and sits comfortably atop most tier lists because of it. Whether you construct your Hunter as a top-notch support via a light build, or a warped damage dealer via the dark branch, or like me, lean more heavily into the power branch, your options are robust. Let me know in the comments below your current or ideal Hunter build. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful or insightful at all, be sure to hit it with a like and subscribe to the channel for more Midnight Suns coverage. Until next time, have a good one.